Now it has the makings of a Hollywood blockbuster, but Angelo Agrizzi insists it's all true. South Africans will be waiting for more explosive revelations from the former Bosasa COO today. He'll resume his testimony for an 8th day at the state capture inquiry. Agrizzi's implicated senior government officials in a litany of alleged bribes, and he's not done just yet. My co-anchor, or rather ENCA anchor Dan Moyane, is tracking the story for us. He joins us live from Parktown. Mr. Moyane, Uveka will have my head for calling you my co-anchor, but there you have it. Live to us there from Parktown this morning. So the list of people who allegedly, according to Angelo Agrizzi, received bribes just grew through these past 7 days of his testimony. Today, that no doubt will continue, and what the Sunday papers in particular, some papers this morning as well, have been focusing on is the allegations that he's made against some journalists who, of course, last week he didn't name.
Good morning, Michelle. It will be an honor to be co-anchoring a program with you, by the way. Okay, now on the state capture issue. Yes, last week Angelo Agrizzi, I think it was on Friday, he sort of mentioned when he was answering a particular question about paying journalists. He's saying that Bosasa paid some journalists. It was for information and to work with them when he was quizzed by that statement of paying journalists by the judge here, the chairperson, the Deputy Chief Justice Raymond Zondo. And nothing more was said about it. Subsequent to that statement, over the weekend, SANEF, the South African National Editors Forum, has now met with the Commission, and the SANEF has been trying to get that meeting going. One of the things they discussed was their allegation made by Mr. Agrizzi that journalists were being paid for information and to work with them by Bosasa at the time, and that came up. And of course, quite correctly, the Commission said because the allegation has been made here at the state capture inquiry, the Commission is bound to investigate this matter further. SANEF, in its statement on that meeting, said they welcome the fact that the Zondo Commission will be investigating the allegation that some journalists were being paid by Bosasa for information and to work with Bosasa. So there'll be further investigations by the Commission. SANEF welcomes that, and it also urged any member of the public who may have information, Michelle, regarding the allegations of journalists having been paid by Bosasa to come forward and supply that information to the Commission. So we're still going to hear more, I guess, in the coming weeks, coming days, coming weeks, about these journalists that were supposedly, allegedly paid by Bosasa. So far, Mr. Agrizzi has not mentioned any name. Many people, both in the media and outside the media, are wondering who these journalists may be. So we'll have to await, one, for the Commission to continue its investigation into this matter, and of course, hopefully people will come up, as SANEF has requested from the public, if they have any further information to supply, or Mr. Agrizzi himself might shed some light today or this week before he finishes his testimony here about who those journalists might be, if he knows them, if he directly was involved in paying them off. But he said it was Mr. Lishabane at the time who was making those payments.
So Dan, I mean, it's the 8th day of his time on the stand. This is a record for anyone who's taken the stand at the state capture inquiry. One feels for people like Advocate Paul Pretorius, who would stand for hours on end leading this extensive testimony. It really is so incredibly detailed. He's going through it with a fine-tooth comb.
Indeed. I mean, if you see the length, if you saw the length of the affidavit by Mr. Angelo Agrizzi to the Commission, you can understand why they're spending such time, such a long time. And on that affidavit, there's a list of names of former state officials, some current government officials, some who only had a meeting with Bosasa. But there are those particularly whose names are mentioned having been paid monies, you know, 100,000 rand there or a little bit more. One of them that we haven't heard more about is a former chairperson of SAA, Ms. Dudumian. We don't know if today there'll be more about that and others, and we don't even know how further they will go into unpacking some of the detail around some of the names. But Mr. Agrizzi has proven to be really explosive in his testimony as he reveals all. And what is important, Michelle, let us remind our viewers that last week this commission here spent some time corroborating what was in the SIU report into alleged corruption in Bosasa of 2009, 10 years ago, and what Mr. Agrizzi has presented in evidence in his affidavit and during his testimony here. And for most of it, he confirmed what was in the SIU report. Now, Michelle, I have Erin Bates with me here, our colleague and reporter, who's been watching this day in and day out, and the importance of that corroboration of the SIU report and Mr. Agrizzi's evidence has been emphasized by Erin Bates, for instance, when she was covering this event last week, publicly, even on her timeline on Twitter. Let me bring her in now. Erin, good morning. Just on that corroboration of the SIU report and Mr. Agrizzi, how important, in your view, was it for this commission to go to the lengths of doing that last week?
I think it's quite important because he is so fast and loose with how he issues his testimony and drops names. And so what it seems the inquiry's legal team is doing is referring to a separate document based on investigations and interviews with a range of sources, including a distinct insider from Agrizzi, and using that to try and line up things and then test them with him. Do you agree with this? Does that confer with what you said in your statement, and so on and so forth? So that's one batch of data the legal team is using to try and corroborate his allegations, and we may well see another batch of data this week. So it is fundamental to testing the veracity of what he said. It also tells us the lengths to which Bosasa went to try and discredit that report, speaking, for example, with NPA insiders in order to develop a strategy to try and rubbish or poo-poo what was in that report.
Yeah, we're going to wait to see what's going to come up here. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. We have to go back to the studio. Now, Michelle, there you have it. We'll have to wait and see what more comes up. But the corroboration has happened. The veracity of Mr. Agrizzi's testimony about Bosasa tested against the official SIU report, about which nothing has been done, Michelle. Let's remind our viewers, for the last 10 years, that investigation was instituted by the then President Thabo Mbeki. It then carried out and was finalized in 2009 by the SIU report. The NPA and no other institution in government has done anything about it. Now it's being tested here with veracity against Mr. Agrizzi's testimony. We'll have to wait and see, Michelle, what's going to come out today, day 8. And remember, there have been reports at the weekend that he was being bribed by Bosasa, former Bosasa, now African Global Operations, offered about 80 million rand to shut up, to keep quiet and not come here. So we'll wait to see what more damning allegations Mr. Agrizzi will present today.
Yeah, damning allegations against some government officials, but also damning against the investigative powers of organizations like the SIU and the Hawks. My colleagues Dan Moyane and Erin Bates live to us there from Parktown.